My name is Dragan and I'm transgendered and I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. So the story that I'm telling is about a little girl and it's her voice that I want to talk about today. When I was about 6 years old, I was a little girl and I started being groomed for sexual contact by an old man who lived next door to our family. He started it really slowly and it was all about, that I'd get treats over there and I'd get attention and I'd watch TV and I'd get things that I wasn't getting at home. And little by little he'd start introducing touching my genitals, penetration, and I just became his thing, really. But I didn't know that. I don't know what I thought. I think I thought he was my friend. I also was abused by teenage boys of the area. I don't even to this day know why that happened, because the two things were very separate, but somehow I think vulnerability has a signal that people who are seeking it can read unconsciously, because I seemed to attract anyone who wanted to do something wrong to a little girl. I seemed to attract them. They'd do it with me. I was raped when I was 7 by a complete stranger. Again, another teenage boy. I, to this day, have a fear response if I'm walking down the street and there's a group of teenage boys walking towards me, because I know the harm they can do. I was abused individually by them and I was abused in a group. And nobody knows. So I had a lot of parallel abuse experiences going on for 6 to 7 years, most of my childhood. When I was 14, that translated into men who were 25, being my boyfriend. And I just was naive. I don't know, I just didn't. I think I thought I wanted it. I didn't tell anyone about it. I don't even really remember the first time I talked about it, but I know I was about 16 and I'd left home. Things weren't good at home. And I remember a discussion when I was 16 with some women where I asked them if they would help me get him. And at the time they said no. So I must have talked about it, but I don't remember who was the first person I told. I remember I told my mother when I was 19. That was the first time I'd said it to her, and that didn't go so well. She didn't respond very well at the time. She basically sort of made out it was my fault. She changed her mind later, but that was her first response. That was pretty harsh. I think the initial impact was self-hatred. I had so much confusion about myself and so much overwhelming emotion and anger and pain, and I turned it all inwards. I turned it all on myself because I don't think I knew where to put it. I didn't really talk about it, so I was trying to put it behind me and trying to forget about it. And then I got a letter out of the blue that my mother actually forwarded to me unknowingly. That was from him after 7 years. And basically he was asking me at 19, I guess he was so confident about his grooming process, he was asking me if I would come down to where he lived and basically be his companion. So that was pretty shocking. But I took it as an opportunity. I thought, well, he's asked me to come down and see him, so I will. So I asked some friends of mine at the time who were, very strong women and very committed to protecting women against men's violence at that time. And I asked them if they would come and help me. And I was angry. So I thought that I would go and I would want to beat him up. I was pretty sure that that's what I wanted to do. And they said that they would support me to do that. So we did this whole sort of covert operation, really. We all went down in a car and I did confront him. And I thought I felt hate towards him, and I thought that I would want to smash him. I was really sure that it was my opportunity to get retribution. But in reality, it was when I found out that I'm not actually a violent person. An angry person, yeah, but not a violent person. I had every opportunity. The agreement was I could do whatever I wanted. I wasn't allowed to kill him. That was the agreement. And I hit him, I hit him a few times, kicked him in the balls, But it didn't bring any joy, it didn't bring any solace. Just kind of made me feel a bit sick, really. And I stopped and I couldn't do it. I couldn't destroy him the way that I felt he had destroyed me. My mother didn't connect with me very well. And so I didn't have a secure connection with her. And I was lonely. And I was just a kid, and I needed attention, and I needed love, actually. I just needed love. And so I was vulnerable. I was this vulnerable little kid, and it was in the country at a time, we're in the 60s, at a time where kids just ran around. And he consciously used that vulnerability. And I think that's unforgivable. The biggest impact on me, wow, there's so many. It derailed me. I was already a child that didn't have a secure attachment with their mother. I had an absent father. So I already struggled with self-esteem, and it just separated me even more from people, from my peers. It left me alone, and I used to self-harm, and I self-harmed for years and years and years, and you know, it was a technique, it was a strategy, kind of, it wasn't just about self-hatred, it was whenever things built up, when things got too much emotionally, it would help everything just subside. And I think another really big effect was in my own family, that I was so on the outside of my own family. I wasn't a good big sister. I didn't know how to be a part of things. I still don't really know how to be a part of things. I struggle with groups. I struggle with feeling that I belong anywhere. I didn't have close relationships with my siblings. I was miserable. I was angry. I bullied them sometimes. So I wasn't really part of a family system. That then went on into my relationships. Didn't know how to do intimacy and feel safe. I don't honestly know that I'm any better at intimacy than I was 30 years ago. That's a hard truth. I keep seeking it. I keep trying. I have a very strong will. I have a belief in healing. I move away from relationships when they start feeling too hard. I decide that I'm better off alone. I focus on my work. I feel lonely. I seek another relationship. I haven't figured out relationships. I think I was in a place of blame for a long time. I felt very much a victim in my life. And I felt very blaming and angry, and I've come around to shifting my understanding around blame to responsibility. I don't think blame's very useful. I think responsibility is useful. It was the responsibility of my parents to keep me safe, and they didn't. That's a harsh thing to say, but it's true. They didn't know, they didn't intend it. But, you know, letting a 6-year-old wander off on her own for hours and hours at a time, day after day after day, just because it's easier to have her out of your hair, it's not keeping her safe. And I know my mother has grief around that. I know that. And I don't blame her. I know she's had a lot of pain. But it is a parent's responsibility to keep their children safe. This is the first time I've really spoken up publicly about this, and I've decided to do that because I want to give that little girl a voice, because now, as a man, she's not seen. And I enjoy this form that I'm in. This form suits me that I'm in. But inside, I'm a very fluid being. I'm a very, male, female, all the shades between. And that little girl, I don't want her to not be seen, because this is her story. And so part of it is that I want her story to be heard, and I also want to empower other people around the impact of that. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person or a dysfunctional person. It's the impact of sexual abuse or childhood trauma. I want to educate around that. But even now, it's not talked about enough. There were so many layers of secrets in my childhood. And when I connected with someone years later, when I was in my 20s, I connected with a man who used to be a boy when I was a girl, and he lived next door. And he was the one who told me about the rape when I was 7, because he witnessed it. I didn't remember it. And through him, I learned about all these other things that were going on in that area, in that nice, safe, parently safe, rural area. And it was a cesspit of abuse, like shockingly so. I knew what was happening to me, but I thought that it was just happening to me. But wow, there were so many layers of abuse going on for the kids in that area, the kids that he knew, and boys as well. Like, it was shocking. So this stuff has got to be blown out of the water. Like, all this secrecy and all the stuff behind closed doors, like, this stuff has got to be recognized by society, and children need to be kept safe. This is not okay. If I could go back and be beside her, I would tell her that she's not bad, that she's beautiful, and she doesn't deserve what's happening to her, and that she needs to tell somebody, because it shouldn't be happening and it's wrong, and those people are not her friends, and that man is not her friend, and he's using her. And I would tell her to not be afraid, and that she can tell someone and make it stop. And I would tell her that she can do whatever she wants in the world and she can be whoever she wants, and that she's smart. And strong. The little girl that was me, who was a pretty gender fluid little being, but was made to be a little girl. Her name was Susie. And I love her, and I will never deny her.